Hey everyone, my name is Allison and welcome to the Sunsoul Collective. So this is a new series I'm going to be trying to do. It kind of started just by me wanting to get away from watching so much TV, doing things that weren't really stimulating my mind, and I would come to YouTube for some guidance, to feel like I wasn't alone, and hear things that weren't so text-like about self-help and healing. I've just always really enjoyed hearing people's stories, learning about people's journeys, and I thought that as I learn, as we all learn, I could come onto this platform and just share some things that I've learned on my personal journey. So a recurring topic in my life has been me not speaking up for myself and standing up for myself especially. I think that was what I wanted to start off with. It's not to say that I'm not a nice person anymore, but I was definitely way too nice to people who probably didn't deserve it back then. And well, that's why I'm doing this. I'm doing this maybe to offer some beginning steps, to offer some things that I'm still working on myself, and eventually become somebody who speaks up for myself 100%. 25/8, all day, every day. At the moment, I would say I'm probably at a 62% on speaking up for myself, but it's been a huge leap, and I think the first step in doing that is choosing yourself and admitting that you're tired of putting everybody before you and putting yourself in situations that don't necessarily feel comfortable to be comfortable. So maybe that's where I should start. A lot of standing up for yourself or avoiding standing up for yourself usually roots in discomfort of how you'll be perceived, discomfort of maybe communicating things wrong, because usually people who don't stand up for themselves, not usually, I'm not going to speak for everybody, but for myself, it comes from a place of overthinking, of if I'd come off wrong, if I'd come off rude, because I do genuinely like to be a kind person, and I would never want to give off the perception that I'm rude or that I'm not considerate of somebody's feelings. A lot of us try to avoid that momentary discomfort, and I say momentary because I always use this quote to soothe myself when maybe I feel like I shouldn't speak up, and it's momentary discomfort is better than infinite discomfort. Let's say your coworker comes up to you and says something that makes you feel uncomfortable, and in your head you're like, oh my gosh, I shouldn't say something because I don't want to make her feel uncomfortable. But then your coworker continues to do it. They continue to do it and you just don't say anything. So that moment was when you could have just said something and made it uncomfortable for a little bit, just calling out something, and it probably wouldn't have even gone bad. Whereas when you avoid a situation like that, then there's long-term discomfort. The person thinks that it's okay to be doing those things, and they'll continue to do so because you don't speak up for yourself. And either the person knows that this makes you uncomfortable and they're just continuing to do it, or they really don't know, and people can't read your mind a lot of the times. We need to just get out of our heads and stand up for ourselves. I kind of took some notes because I have so many things to say about this. I would say I have experienced every angle of not standing up for myself, and a lot of us have, and it's something that we should talk about. We talk about healing, we talk about being confident, but we don't talk about the things that don't support us in being confident, which is not speaking up for ourselves. That is like the one thing that can really pull us down. So I wanted to start off with something that we all say, which is, wow, I need to take my own advice. And I've noticed it lately when I tell my friends to do something that's so ballsy, that's so straightforward and just like claiming it. And then it's like, what the hell? Who am I? Who am I to speak on this? Like, how is my friend supposed to trust me when I'm not doing these confident things? So I guess the first step is starting to realize that you're capable of doing strong things. You're capable of taking your own advice. If it is in your brain, if it is in your consciousness, then that is the first step to standing up for yourself. And when we're in these situations where we want to stand up for ourselves, but we're worrying about how we're being perceived, ask for forgiveness, not for permission. So instead of tiptoeing around people, just freaking do it. And if you mess up, then say you're sorry. Messing up is human. And that was what I had to learn on this journey of standing up for myself, because my journey was mainly not wanting to seem pushy or just unkind and selfish, so I would tiptoe around people. Now I'm at this point where I'm communicating myself a little more, but I think that sometimes I just still don't say things how I want to say them because I feel like they might come off wrong. Asking for forgiveness and not for permission. Say it how you want to say it, and then every now and then we'll be like, oh crap, maybe that came off really wrong, and then we can apologize. But how often does that happen? And if it does, it's just a reminder of where we are in our journey, and that sometimes we get a little ahead of ourselves when we say things, and that's totally okay. So a lot of people who do not stand up for ourselves have this thing in common, and it's people pleasing. So sometimes we'll find ourselves in conversations where we're being agreeable, and being agreeable is nice, it's professional, it is respectful in some cultures, but it also disrupts our truth. It's basically a saying, yeah, instead of just saying our opinion. And it's not being problematic saying your opinion, and it's not problematic to disagree. It's just advocating for yourself, letting people know what you stand for. And it doesn't have to be on a political end, telling people, oh, I don't like what you did. Just little things that we don't always have to be agreeable on. People like us who don't stand up for ourselves, who don't want to impose, sometimes stray away from just asking for some help, asking for a simple change, because we don't want to impose, we don't want to make anything difficult for people. But it's okay every now and then to ask for what we need. I think something that comes hand in hand with that is wanting to seem nice all the time, wanting to come off nice. And it's not that we shouldn't be nice. I just personally feel that in the moments where I've tried to be nice and express some things, sometimes I leave something out, because then I get so stuck on expressing something kindly and appropriately that within me communicating that, my message kind of gets lost in translation, especially when it comes to something that I need to stand up for myself or express something that really bothered me. With wanting to be kind and gentle, my message won't be delivered as well as it could have been, because I'm trying to protect somebody else's feelings rather than my own. So in doing so, I leave things out. I probably don't express how much something bothered me or how it didn't sit well with me, because I'm trying to predict how it will sit with somebody. I've found that a solution for this is just bracing people before I say things. And they're like small solutions. I wouldn't even say they're solutions, because conflict will be conflict. People will take things how they take things. And we have to release the control that we want to have on situations. But I do try to brace people for a situation, and like I express how I feel before I actually say what I feel. So I'm not mad at you. I hope I don't come off mean in any way, and I'm gonna try to express this the best that I can. So this is how I feel. Honestly, maybe this video should have been called Communicating When You're an Overthinker, but communication and standing up for ourselves are hand in hand. So when we're overthinkers like this, we usually don't stand up for ourselves, because we think of everything outside of ourselves. We think of how people will react before ourselves. And yeah. So this is a huge one for me. And I feel like this is why I've been so hard on myself my whole life. And although I'm like an extroverted introvert, so I would be more introverted with my emotions towards myself and kind of humble myself a lot. And within humbling myself, I made myself insecure. But I don't know if anybody can relate to this, but this one is really personal to me. And I feel like it is the root of a lot of my insecurities. But I don't let myself be confident. I don't let myself be proud of myself, because I never want to appear cocky or full of myself. And I think that that's one thing that's scary when you want to stand up for yourself, seeming like a know-it-all, seeming so confident in what you're saying. I don't know why that scared me so much, but it did. And the thing that I'm having room for now is to be full of myself, to be confident, to be proud of my accomplishments. Whereas a lot of times I would say, it's okay. I don't even care to argue my opinion. And it's like, what? I should be able to express myself freely. Like, and just little things like that made me feel like I was taking up too much space. And standing up for yourself, you do need to take up space. Advocating for yourself isn't something that happens naturally. It's a step that you have to take. You could sit there and be quiet and just listen to people. And there's nothing wrong with being quiet. I love being quiet a lot of the time. Unless it's something that makes me uncomfortable, sometimes I have to step outside of my safe space and to create that little boundary for myself, and then I can step right back in, because I'm not a person who likes conflict most of the time. It's not that when you want to stand up for yourself, you have to be outside of your bubble all the time. You just have to step out every now and then and sweep up the leaves that have built up on your porch. That being said, I think we need to give ourselves more room to acknowledge how knowing we are, how much we love ourselves. It's not being so outward about, oh, don't mess with me. It's just, hey, look, I have really strict boundaries for myself and I don't think I can do this. Coming to my next topic is boundaries. Boundaries are something I've struggled with because I don't want to let people down a lot of the time. But within doing things that make me feel uncomfortable or doing things that just don't feed my soul, things that don't uplift you, I was doing myself a disservice. I was hurting myself in the process because I was people-pleasing yet again. So here's the thing about boundaries. We always talk about setting boundaries with people. We talk about setting boundaries in the workplace, setting boundaries with your friends, relationships, family. But one thing I've realized about boundaries is that boundaries are just your own little rules and regulations in your own space, and then you apply them to everybody. So it's not something that you need to do between you and another party. It's just a line that you have drawn around everybody, a line that you have for yourself that people can't pass or people can't even come close to. And if you do, well, that just tells me where you are. So wow, it's almost going to be a year since I started my career. But last year, I started a job that mentally was really draining, and I just don't think it matched me. And I think it is a really beautiful profession, but it's also a profession that takes a lot. And being 23 years old at the time, I don't think I was ready to give so much of myself to that profession. And one thing that people told me was to set very clear boundaries. The first weeks of the job, I would stay there till like 5 p.m. until finally I felt so overworked and I felt like I wasn't seeing a difference, that I just had to set clear emotional boundaries. And that's something that we don't really talk about. Or not really talk about, but that's something that we don't really think of when we think about boundaries. We just think of protecting ourselves from other people, but sometimes we need to regulate ourselves. And there were certain points of stress that I would have to surrender to and say, I can't go there today. That's another thing I've had to do, which doesn't really relate to this topic, but I think it's important to talk about, which is setting boundaries or regulations on how much power things have over you. Lately, I've been trying to do that. The minute I find myself extremely stressed over something or finding something that has just completely taken over me, I'm like, okay. It's not me completely putting it in the back burner and saying, well, this doesn't align with me, I'm leaving it there. It's more so saying, let's pause for a moment. I don't think we need to be this stressed. I don't think anything merits this much stress, and I can't let things disrupt my peace like this. So I definitely need to pause and take care of myself. Tying it all back to the point, when it comes to standing up for yourself, speaking up for yourself, and becoming this confident communicator, we have to set boundaries on how personal we take things. And I think the biggest boundary in stepping up for yourself is releasing control. Knowing that you're not going to be able to predict how people react to your energy, how people react to your presence. But boundaries are mainly the principle that we need to keep closest to us when we want to protect ourselves and be number one in our own lives. Like, we always talk about how much we love the people in our lives and how much we want to protect them, but why don't we hold these same standards for ourselves? Similar to what I had mentioned earlier, we seek advice from other people and we put other people's words at such a high regard. When we sit with ourselves, we're basically saying the same things to ourselves, and probably things that resonate a little more. Like, have you ever had a friend give you advice and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I hear you. And then they say one thing and you're like, but it's not that either. And people just won't get us. Just won't get us like we get us. So it's important for us to take our own advice, to hold ourselves at a high regard, and just be okay with ourselves evolving and learning, figuring shit the fuck out. I don't really know where I was going with that. And the last thing that I want to talk about is finding balance with standing up for ourselves. And one thing that isn't active in doing this is not responding. So sometimes we don't need to be active about respecting ourselves and not letting people step on us. Sometimes it's actually just removing ourselves and our energy from a situation. For example, sometimes somebody's not meeting me at my energy level and I can't expect people to do that, so I need to step away. Whether that's me trying to coordinate something with people, me just giving more than receiving, then I'm like, maybe we both just need some clarity on a situation. So accepting that sometimes stepping away from a situation brings you clarity, and it is standing up for yourself by not giving something so much energy and respecting your own. We can just be places where we receive the energy that we want, where we don't have to feel uncomfortable all the time. Being comfortable is so nice that we're not ready to let go of people and relationships that don't serve us, but it is so necessary to do this. It's not to say that things don't serve us. It's not to say that we don't value these things anymore. But if they're disrupting our peace this much, it's okay to say that it's time to part ways. I'm still learning to stand up for myself, and here's the space that I'm at, and maybe you could find yourself in this space too. It's that there's two places we can be. Well, three. The first place is biting our tongue and holding our truth and being permanently uncomfortable. The second place is where I'm at right now. I've never been somebody to speak up for myself comfortably, and it's being a little uncomfortable. Choosing to communicate ourselves and protect ourselves and set boundaries. And we're still uncomfortable as we do it, but each time we do it, it's like, wait a second, that wasn't so bad at all. And I feel really good after this. You realize it's not that bad, and you're still consistently trying and working at it. And the last place is being one of those people who really don't give a fuck. I said it. Being a person that does not give a fuck. And if you are that type of person, thank you, because you inspire me, and that is what I aspire to be. So it's a process. Some days we are here and we realize that we bit our tongue. And there's just points where we're actively working at being confident and standing tall and true within ourselves. And someday we'll be here. Hopefully soon we will be here. So thank you all for watching this video if you got to this point, and we're all learning. Just a reminder that the people you look up to are still learning. They make mistakes. A reminder that people who you see on social media, people who you interact with on a daily basis, probably are showing you the highlights of themselves. They don't see that everybody is struggling with something. That's not putting people down to feel better about yourself. It's just a reminder that we're all freaking human and nobody is perfect. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you liked it, like, subscribe, and dale.